enlisted men and women of the United States Army comprise the muscle and backbone of America's largest fighting force, a force that is ready to take on tyranny, oppression, or terrorism anywhere on the planet in the name of freedom and liberty. These brave young men and women rely not only on their superior equipment and advanced technology, but also on their physical conditioning, their discipline, and their willingness to endure any hardship, and if need be, self-sacrifice. These brave men and women truly are American heroes. But somebody needs to tell them that their rank structure is just freaking stupid. Today we're going to try to correct and fix the enlisted ranks of the United States Army, which are, after all, are pretty freaking stupid, and we're going to be going from private all the way to Command Sergeant Major of the United States Army. Now, before we even get started, obviously there's one rank that must be addressed before anything else can be done. We're going to jump ahead a little because this rank is simply the stupidest rank ever used by any branch of the military at any time. If you look at all the ranks of the United States Army, there's clearly one that doesn't belong. There's clearly one that is not like the rest. There's clearly one that just smacks of stupidity. And of course, which one am I speaking about? The only one that is absolutely different from everything else, and this, of course, we're talking about specialist. Now, our problem with specialist is not just the rank, it's also the title. Specialist is not a rank. Specialist is a descriptive term of your skills or your abilities within a certain career field. Now, the term specialist would be accurate if the people below and above him, those that are better skilled and less skilled, would have titles such as clueless, competent, and badass, and then yes, specialist would fit in perfectly. Unfortunately, the ranks below and above that of specialist have actual rank names, which make specialist absolutely stupid. So the term specialist simply just needs to go away. Now, the shape itself, this goofy guitar pick, has absolutely no place in here. Obviously, this is worn on the uniform. If you look up the term uniform in Google, the first definition is literally not changing in form or character, remaining the same in all classes at all times. That is the absolute textbook definition of the term uniform, which of course the rank is part of the uniform. Now, this shape that they gave it, okay, this shape may pop up in popular culture, and this shape may pop up, in a million places where you look, but it doesn't belong within the military ranks. And the reason why it doesn't belong in the military ranks is because it's not like the other ranks. Now, you may say, well, it's like the private rank, it's upside down. And even if that's true, it's still upside down, so no, it still doesn't count. But let's assume that it is. If we take a look at the specialist rank upside down next to the private rank, you will notice that the private rank has straight edges, while the specialist rank has rounded edges, so it's still not the same. It just doesn't make sense. Now, as far as the rank itself, it is literally rankless. It is empty space. There's nothing in there. There's literally nothing to fill that goofy looking guitar pick other than this symbol right here. Now, this symbol here is literally the national symbol of the United States of America. If you ever see Air Force One land, you will see that that same emblem is embedded throughout the aircraft. When the President of the United States gives a speech, it's always clearly presented on the podium. To have somebody, and let's be honest, of lower rank, actually have as a rank the national symbol of the United States of America, well, that's just freaking stupid. I believe there's absolutely no fixing this thing. We need to just get rid of specialists. We need to terminate it with prejudice. We need to be able to just discard it in a manner that we will never, ever, ever go back to such a stupid rank. Quickly moving on to the other enlisted ranks. The lower three ranks, now that we've gotten rid of specialist, is of course private first class, and corporal. Now, private is a time-honored military term. We very, very much like private. We're going to keep private. Corporal is also a time-honored, long-term military term, so we very much like corporal. We're gonna keep corporal. The problem here is private first class. First of all, there's nothing first class about being lower enlisted in the Army, and let's be honest, it's just a misleading term. So what we're going to do is, since the private first class is in between a private and a corporal, we're going to merge private and corporal. We're going to call him Prioral. Moving on to the sergeants. The first rank we could encounter is that of Sergeant 3 Stripes. We like that. That is a time-honored military term. Proper stripes, very nice. We very much like sergeant. As a sergeant, you usually work on your own. You start to mentor the lower enlisted, but you're not quite in a position where you're going to have a staff. Now, once you get promoted past sergeant, you become a staff sergeant, and we very much like staff sergeant, because as a staff sergeant, you do have lower enlisted working for you. You do have a staff of people that are working for you. Now, from there, we move on to sergeant first class. As we discussed with the privates, there's really not a lot first class about being in the Army, so it's a very misleading term. Now, as covered in my other videos for I believe the Marine Corps, the term Master Sergeant has a very negative connotation that we simply cannot accept. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to leave Sergeant alone, we're going to leave Staff Sergeant alone, we're going to make Sergeant First Class and Master Sergeant true and accurate. Now, the higher up you go in rank, the bigger the staff gets. So we're going to call this guy Sergeant, we're going to call this guy Staff Sergeant, we're going to call this guy Bigger Staff Sergeant, and we're going to call the last guy, he's going to be called Biggest Staff Sergeant. So we go with Sergeant, Staff Sergeant, Bigger Staff Sergeant, and Biggest Staff Sergeant. Because after all, that just makes sense. Moving on to the top ranks. The first rank we encounter is that of First Sergeant. Now, this is a very misleading term because he is not a first sergeant. He's not even close to being a first sergeant. As we look at the rest of the Army ranks, there are literally 4 sergeants that come before him. Sergeant, Staff Sergeant, Bigger Staff Sergeant, and Biggest Staff Sergeant. Hence, we can't call this guy a first sergeant. But what we can call him is what is true and accurate. We can call him Fifth Sergeant. So we're going to change his name from First Sergeant to Fifth Sergeant. Now, moving on. And this is where we're going to have a lot of problems. Now, we like the stripes. All the stripes here are good. The problem we have here is the term Major. When you talk about Sergeant Major, you're talking about a term that is most commonly associated with the officer ranks, not the enlisted ranks. Officer ranks, enlisted ranks. Now, the United States Army uses the term major for their sergeants not once, not twice, but 3 times. We believe this is incorrect and absolutely needs to be fixed. Now, as stated in the other videos that I've done, clearly the only term that applies to somebody that is so senior, so high in authority, a man that has achieved great success in the United States Army. Of course, I think we just need to replace the term major with the term the Big Chingon. So we're gonna go with Sergeant Big Chingon, Command Sergeant Big Chingon, and then that will take us on to the top rank. Moving on to the top rank, and this is the Command Sergeant Major of the United States Army. There's only one of these in the entire Army. This is arguably the most seasoned veteran warrior in the entire United States military. Since the Army is the largest branch, this individual faced the largest number of individuals to ascend to the top position. This man or woman is a man amongst men or a woman amongst women. A true warrior, a true dedicated soldier of the United States. As such, he requires a rank and a title befitting of his position. And certainly no one can argue with that. Again, the term major applies to the officers, not to enlisted. And it's not enough to say of the Army, because the Army can also be a generic term to encompass other branches of the military. So we're going to change his name to the Big Chingon Sergeant of the whole Army. That way people understand it's not part of the Army, it's the whole Army. Now, the second problem we have with the Big Chingon Sergeant of the whole Army is the actual rank that he wears upon his sleeve. Now, if you look here, this is the emblem that's in the middle of a bunch of stripes. It's the same emblem as was on the Specialist that we got rid of. Now, we don't have a problem with this emblem being on the Big Chingon Sergeant of the whole Army, because he is the big Shingon sergeant of the whole army. He certainly earned the right to wear the national emblem upon his sleeve. Here's the problem. If you look at the national emblem of the United States, okay, and I'll overlay it just so you see that it is in fact the same emblem. The eagle is always facing this way. And the reason why it's facing this way is because it's looking towards the olive branch that it holds in its claw. The olive branch is of course symbolic of peace. This signifies that the United States is always looking for peace, but we will hang on to the arrows on the other claw in case we need to go to war. Well, I believe that putting a pacifist symbol on perhaps the nation's top warrior is just incorrect. So this is what we need to do. We need to turn the eagle's head from the olive branch to the arrows, because this guy is a warrior. This guy doesn't back down from a fight. This guy wants to go out and find a bad guy, a tyrant, a dictator, somebody that's oppressing people, to fight them. This guy is not, he's not a long-haired hippie. So we turn the eagle's head facing this way so that it's facing the arrows. Now, and this right here is the absolute best picture I could find on the internet of the big Shingon sergeant of the whole army. This is the absolute best picture of the actual rank. Now the rank is obviously embroidered, so it's very, very hard to see which way the eagle is facing. And we need to make sure that it's facing the right way, which is again towards the arrows. Now, even after I photoshopped it, and this has been photoshopped so the eagle's facing the correct way, you can tell it's still very hard to tell which way the eagle is looking. So in order to make it clear to everybody, we're just going to add one little extra touch. We're going to give the eagle a big googly eye.